Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Trident Talks. This one's going to be super exciting. I'm joined by Chris Catanzaro, the VP of Channel Sales at Halcyon, company that I've been following for some time. Chris, welcome. How are you
Hey,
doing?
thank you. Yeah, all good. Good to see you.
Good. Good, likewise. So this has been booked in for a little while. You and I have been speaking for a number of months now. And ever since we first kind of connected and you started telling me about the business, it's definitely something that I'm super interested in. And I'm going to be watching very, very closely at the team's successes. So before we get stuck into all the juicy bits and pieces of what is Halcyon and what kind of makes it is what it is, would you like to give the audience a bit of insight and a bit of background into who you are?
Sure. I will. Actually, I'll throw you a curveball too.
I'll go for it.
Did you see news today that we hired Ollie Newbury?
I did. I actually just pinged him on LinkedIn prior to this, so he probably won't come back. But that's a big announcement. That's good.
That's awesome. Ollie's a superstar. We're so excited to have him. I got to do when I was in London and I was supposed to hang out with you, and then the weather got bad and I had to leave early. We did a panel, Ollie and I, and at that point, I didn't know he was. I don't think it was in the cards for him to come here. So I was pretty excited to have him as our chief strategy officer. Super cool.
Yeah, I'm
So put the
sure.
new news up front for
I'm glad. I'm
everybody.
glad I got that curveball. I'm gonna have to try and repay the favor now.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's good
So
announcement. I'll be sure to kind of share that as well. So, yeah, perfect.
So to answer your question, taking a step back. So I've been in cyber for a long time now. I haven't done the math in a while, must be 20 years or so. Um, how I got into cyber, I had this good buddy, Steve Ritter. Steve Ritter worked for this company called Preventus, which got acquired by McAfee. But at the time, Ritter and I worked for this other company, and he ended up going to Preventus. And I was looking at it, and I go, man, that company is just going to be on fire. It was like semi-automated pen testing, whatever that was 20 years ago.
Okay.
And I knew that would be a big deal. And I kept saying, Ritter, you got to get me a job. Like, let me get in there as junior sales guy. And he kept saying, I'll get you in if I can. He goes, but we're only hiring people with cyber experience. So like 20 years ago, who had freaking cyber experience, right? Nobody. If you didn't work for McAfee or Symantec or something like that, like you weren't getting a job. And I kept hassling him, and he kept trying, and he introduced me to people, and they said, "Oh, you look like you're good, but like we only hire people with cyber experience. That's our plan." And I was like, dogged. I was gonna make sure that I got cyber experience. So following that, I ended up working for a company called, gosh, what was the name of that company? Um, SecureView, and it was basically the first MSSP. The guy who started SecureView, Rajiv Kanalkar, he created the first SIM called Net Forensics, and then he ended up selling that off. And he thought, what's better than just the appliance, but why not have it as a service? So that was my first dive into cyber a long time ago. And then, so let me think. I guess I could vet that out. That was like '08 timeframe, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere around that economic downturn in the US, around '08. And after that, I really dug in. And I think after SecureWorks, I ended up working for RSA for a long time. And
Okay.
then from RSA to Blue Coat, and then Blue Coat, I went to Threat Intel, Recorded Future, which we had a pretty nice exit not too long ago, like 2.65 billion.
Nice.
And the only thing that could get me to leave Recorded Future, as we were kind of on fire, was actually Sentinel One. And for most people that know Sentinel One, we had the largest cybersecurity IPO ever at the time. I think we lost that title to the re-IPO sale point. Darn them. But it doesn't really count. It's a re-IPO. Come on. Uh, yeah, 4.5 years at Sentinel One, where I came in and built the channel program, and by the time I left, I actually ran MSSP, which was 41% of the overall revenue when I left.
Wow.
Um, and the only thing kind of similar, the only thing that could pry me out of Sentinel One, which was an amazing company and really enjoyed working there, was the opportunity to do something again from the ground up, which was Halcyon, where we focus on eliminating the business impacts of ransomware, which is just such a big problem and such a dollar amount tied to the problem. And a bunch of good people here couldn't resist.
Yeah. Before we dive into that, that's an impressive career. And 20 years ago, where autonomous pen testing or semi-autonomous pen testing, there's companies now. I mean, there's lots of good companies out there that are just getting around to doing that. There's still companies that are doing manual pen testing. They
Yeah.
might see the benefit of that of whatever way, shape, or form. So it's really interesting to hear that kind of there was that level of technology 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Um,
Crazy.
and I suppose this is your curveball. This will be your one curveball.
All right.
What do you think? You've obviously seen a lot over the last 20 years of business within security, and there's obviously been kind of a lot of like trends, ebbs and flows within technology. Um, do you think, I guess the question I'm trying to ask is there a particular trend or something that you've seen that's happened over the course of the years that's happening now?
Hmm. It seems like everything that used to happen seems to happen again. So
Yeah.
you keep seeing people try to do stuff like DLP. I'm hearing companies kind of rebirth in DLP.
Uh-huh.
And then next gen vulnerability management, which is like
Hmm.
Wiz.
Hmm.
Because a lot of those things, like they just kind of come up with new ways to talk about it, and they're using
Yeah.
definitely new technology. But I feel like those are like kind of repeating cycles, right? Like DLPs, I'm seeing people bring it up again more in the context of cloud. Like, how do you make sure where your data is going and you don't want it to leak to the wrong places? Um, Cloud security posture management, that's really just like my slouching, stand up straight, but it's worth 30, whatever it was, $32 billion. That's pretty
Mm.
crazy. So those seem to be recycling things, recycling trends to me with
Yeah.
new constraints, but same kind of problem, so to speak.
Yeah, you're right. Just change the way you're talking about things, but essentially it's the same thing plus a little bit more. So, okay, that's interesting.
But
I'm glad
I,
I am onto that.
I gotta take your softball a little further though. Just
Go for it.
like because if you think about that as it leads into what we do, you get tech debt with your technology and you have all these existing clients on an existing platform. So if you've been doing business like I said, Preventus was that company that got acquired by McAfee. If you were looking at all the stuff McAfee was doing back in the day, it was pretty incredible, right? They were doing all kinds of like really cool technology. But the problem was is they couldn't like jump the shark, and then all of a sudden they get burned by, a little bit by Cylance, and then majorly burned. And like, who uses Mac? No offense to McAfee, but who uses McAfee now for like true enterprise endpoint detection and response? Like nobody's using it for EDR. Everybody's using CrowdStrike and Sentinel-1.
Hmm.
But they had all the right ideas. They knew that was the trend, but I think they had so much tech debt that you can't do that because you can't like you got all these existing customers.
Hmm.
I don't know. Like you see that even though those trends are the same, how do old companies do it? It's hard. I don't think
Yeah.
it's not that easy of a thing to do if you already have a whole bunch of customers. And then that leads into like what we're trying to do at Halcyon is we're trying to prevent people from the impacts of ransomware. And there's other stuff that kind of does it, but we don't have the tech debt and we're using a new technology to do it.
Yeah, I love the concept of tech debt without segueing too much. Um, I think there's obviously technology goes in certain cycles, right? And technology that was available 5, 10, 15 years ago is now, in some sense, redundant because the technology now can do what that does tenfold with less people and it's cheaper. And
Yeah,
that's the ebbs and flows of business. So going into Halcyon then, I think. Yeah. Would you like to give a high level overview of what it is that Halcyon does?
sure. So, I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. So Halcyon eliminates the business impacts of ransomware, and what that means to us is in reverse order. We help you recover faster if everything else fails. So we were built with failure in mind, thinking that no security products are ever perfect. And also, like the fact is, people are getting ransomed every day, lots of people all the time, and it's a really good business model for the bad guys. So, how to recover, how to stop the data from leaving, and then, of course, like it wouldn't make any sense to do those things without trying to prevent it altogether in the first place.
Hmm.
So, in reverse order, we help you recover if all else fails. We stop the data from leaving the building in ransomware data. So we stop ransomware attackers from packaging up data and offloading it to drop sites. And then we block. And the blocking is really different because you have to know what the customers currently have in their environment for blocking purposes. And since we don't know, I always say this, we're just trying to get everybody up to par. But for us, par is pretty high bar. And
Hmm.
so the blocking actually becomes a big deal for us. But it's not to say that there's other companies that don't do a great job of blocking. And our secret sauce is the recovery and the data exfiltration prevention.
Okay. Okay. So how does that work then? Quite high level. Obviously, you've got do you partner up with kind of MSSPs? Do you sit on the customer's endpoints, or how does that whole thing work?
Yeah, so we're an agent and we sit on the customer's endpoints. So we sit on, laptops, desktops, and servers, and at we're looking at what we call known good traffic. So we're
Hmm.
assuming that people have some sort of EDR or EPP on there. We're also assuming that most people have at the other end of the spectrum some level of backups,
Ah,
and we're sitting in between that EPP EDR framework and the backup framework, and we're an agent that sits on each endpoint. And what we're looking at is what we would call unknown good traffic. So we're not trying to like sit in front of those things and say like, so we can see everything they see and we're going to see more and do it better. We're actually going the other direction. We're sitting on the other side of your, like, for instance, if a customer had CrowdStrike, we're sitting on the other side of CrowdStrike, knowing that CrowdStrike does an amazing job of stopping all kinds of breaches. And then we are specifically focused on those TTPs around ransomware. And our goal is just to make sure that our cover customers can recover faster than anybody else if they had a ransomware attack. And also, kind of a secondary goal to that would be, in a perfect world, just reduce the blast radius to like one machine. So like if ransomware is super effective and the bad guys are really, really good at creating their ransomware and they're great at getting their initial access, and they successfully launch a ransomware attack, that it gets contained on one machine, not on 3,000 machines. If you could just contain one machine, like that's not too bad. Like if you tell most CISOs, I think if you were to ask Ollie, when Newbury, if you could only have one machine hit with ransomware and you could recover that machine because you already have the keys, that would be probably a pretty big win. That would be a pretty easy conversation to have with the board. Like, hey, what happened? I heard we got hit with ransomware. Yeah, we did. It hit one computer and we recovered it within a couple hours. No big deal.
I think it's really interesting because I did delivered a round table a couple of evenings ago, and I'm probably going to get this stat completely wrong, but it was something along the lines of let me see if I can remember what they said. It's like 30 or 40% of businesses that are hit with ransomware end up going bankrupt or shutting down within 18 to like 24 months post that because of the
Yeah.
financial damage or the payout that they had to kind of do or whatever shape or form. This could, I guess, eventually stop that because or prevent that because you're everything that's leaving the company networks, the whole data loss or whatever it may be, you're knowing what's meant to be going out versus what's not. And the second that leaves, if it's ransomware TTP, you can identify that and track it through like the whole life cycle of passing through that and prevent it at whatever stage, right?
That's our goal, yeah. So
Yeah.
what we do is we don't do the data classification, but
Okay.
we look at the specific volumes of data, how they package it, so what techniques they're packaging, and then where they're sending it, and a few other secret sauce heuristics that we put in our model, that we can say, okay, that looks like ransomware because we track all those ransomware groups and we know exactly how they do it. So we'll say like that is synonymous with how ransomware works. We're going to go ahead and fire off something to stop that process right away and stop it right there so almost no data leaves the building. And if it happens to be good data, which we haven't found yet, but if it happens to be good data, we can then get confirmation and then let it out officially, but we have not seen that yet across our customer base. We haven't had one time where we had a false positive where it was good data going out and we stopped it. The only things we've
Yeah.
stopped have been ransomware.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And what kind of things are you seeing on the market at the moment when you're engaged with your customers? Are they kind of aware of what's going on? Is there a lot of education that needs to be done around how you can actually benefit them, or is everyone quite switched on?
No, I think on the reality is those who have pain are very switched on.
Yeah.
And who knows? I mean, with our customer base, I would say 100% of our customer base has either had ransomware before they became our customer or been really close to somebody who had ransomware. So like as an example would be healthcare companies that were customers of Change Healthcare. We have a ton of them that used to be or still are. They're customers of Change Healthcare. So when Change Healthcare got ransomed, it negatively impacted them. And they figured like if I'm a business partner of somebody and it negatively impacted me this much, I better have some extra protection.
Yeah.
So everybody who's bought our software is really, really close to a blast radius of some sort. So there's still a lot of education that has to go on because a lot of people are like, no, I'm good. I have, if they haven't been ransomed yet, they're like, I'm good. Or they're told they're good from some of their other providers. Like, oh, don't worry, we do that. We stop ransomware.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
that's interesting. I think you're right. It's that classic adage of businesses or companies that haven't been breached or exposed to ransomware, et cetera, et cetera. I kind of think they're um, uh, what's the word I'm thinking of? We've already
they're
scratched.
like immune to it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, immune to it, untouchable. So until obviously that happens, and then obviously everyone gets invested within security. Um, so yeah, that kind of makes sense. And I kind of forgot the other question I was going to ask, but it'll definitely come back to me shortly. But you guys are also going to RSA, right?
Yeah, of course we'll be there. Yeah.
Yeah,
We
nice. And
actually have a cool setup.
you
As,
got quite
as
a
we were
few cocktail parties, right?
as we were talking before, we actually have and I didn't believe it to be honest. Like last year, I was new to the company, and everybody kept telling me how cool our setup is. But we have this setup where we rent out this bar called Natoma Cabana, and it's just kind of this nice little quiet oasis in the middle of a bunch of chaos. So it's kind of a cool place. It's actually a bar, but it's like kind of a smaller bar. It's got all these like plants and trees on the inside of it, and it's got a good vibe to it. But yeah, we're hosting a couple things there, and we'll be there. We also use that for offsite meetings as well, where our higher profile customers and partners. So yeah, we'll have to put that in your links or whatever down below after.
Yeah, we'll put it in the comments, but I'm going to try it. The link's below here. Just feel free to click that. Hopefully, marketing can sort that out. But yeah, I'm sure anyone who's interested in within the business and the benefits it can bring, definitely kind of sign up to that if you're going to RSA. And I'm sure you'll be happy to kind of take any kind of connection requests or emails, Chris, to answer their questions.
Of
There's
course.
lots of stuff we haven't covered, like the future of the business and some kind of key other considerations. But is there kind of like a closing note or advice that you'd like to give to companies who would be interested in speaking to Halcyon?
Yeah. Well, first of all, hopefully pique some interest and people should check us out. We're a next gen technology. We're having wild success in the market, and even better. Uh, Today we're 100% effective for our customer base, which, usually you don't say that in cybersecurity. And, at some point we might not be 100%, but we'll always be 100% on the recovery side. Um, yeah, customers should check us out if they're worried about ransomware and look at the way that we do things. Our approach is a bit different. And, yeah, you can sleep better at night. You can go to board meetings a little bit easier if you're a customer.
Nice one. And when that question comes back to me, Chris, we re-record this and we do something else. But in the meantime, I guess I'll see you at RSA and thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Cheers, Chris.